Hello to everyone watching. My hope with all our studying is not only for those who are married to have better marriages, but also for those who are not married to think twice about their intended spouse, to look back at everything that we will read and have read, and really consider and compare that person to what God expects, and also to honestly judge ourselves whether we are married or not. Are we what God wants us to be? If I'm not what God wants me to be, should I even form a home, an Adventist home? May you be blessed as we continue our studying, and may you find something relevant for you as we read together. I would summarize this chapter 4, by saying the influence of the home, a city that is put on a hill with a light when you're shining. When you're shining on a hill, your light cannot be hid. And that's it, really. That's what I believe. The whole chapter is about our influence and how we cannot be hid if we are a light. Unfortunately, if we are darkness, we not only are like the rest around us who are darkness, but we then influence others to also be darkness. So that is really my overview of the chapter. I will dive right in. Again, it's short. And it's vague. It's not really as specific. It's not really diving deep into the practicalities that I know are coming up, that I know are coming up, or I might be confusing the practicalities with other books. I've read so many books and reread so many books that I'm hoping that I'm telling you the truth that it was coming up. So, A Light in the Community, Chapter 4. The mission of the home extends beyond its own members. The Christian home is to be an object lesson illustrating the excellence of the true principles of life. I'm glad it does. Or rather, when I chose to be a homemaker, I was sad because for me it felt like I'm choosing either or. I'm either going to be a homemaker or I'll be a missionary. I can't be both. But by being a home missionary, as she puts it somewhere else, I still am a missionary. I still am fulfilling God's gospel or spreading God's gospel further than where I am right now, than within these walls that I'm sitting in right now. For me, technology has been a blessing. I really have felt enclosed. My dream had been to go into hospitals and minister to other women, especially women who are struggling and sad and who don't get visitors. That was my hope. My other hope was to counsel black women especially, because they're the ones who I saw struggling the most in the groups I was in. And that is part of the joy of having my struggles. A friend and I were discussing having Facebook, and she was saying, yeah, she sees how if she was me, there would be more need or more use for Facebook, because I'm on Facebook. When I am on Facebook, I generally deactivate. But when I'm on Facebook, it's for the groups. And the nice thing is, I'm in those groups, yes, because I'm struggling, but I can also thank God for certain things while in those groups. And I then get people who write to me privately, personally, to ask me questions, to thank me for this testimony and that testimony. You don't have to be limited by the four walls that you're in and by the children that you are teaching. There's more. There are more people you can reach. When you're taking a walk through the neighborhood, we all have different gifts. We really do. My child's birth mother told me that my gift is writing, that I make her feel as if she's really living what I'm describing and talking about. Others have different gifts, so you might not reach the hearts of people like I do when I go and narrate a story that's happening in my life. You can smile at your neighbors. If your neighbors are in need, you can visit them. There are many ways to be a good, holy homemaker while also being a good missionary. And the first thing is our influence, which is unconscious. We don't even have to do anything, just by being, just by living. we already are an influence and we are having an impact, which I'm glad about. I really am. Nobler principles of life are introduced into other households, and an uplifting influence works in the community. That was the last part of the first paragraph. Because we don't live for ourselves. Our children go out to church, they go next door, or they go taking walks, they play at the park, they go to occupational therapy, they do things, they meet other people, they go to the shop, they meet other people. Yes, they're homeschooled, but it doesn't mean they stay at home all day, every day. We go out to nature, we go into places of interest. They have time, or there's an opportunity for our children also to be an influence on other people. And if we are noble, that influence will spread to others. Isn't that a blessing? It is a blessing if you're like me and you really wish you had a bigger mission field than you do. And also, don't be like me. That's how I used to feel. I feel like, oh no, now I'm limited. But this is important. That one child is worth everything. God would have died. Jesus would have come down for that one child. So that one child, if you only have one child that you are parenting, that is the greatest mission field you could ever have. Don't ever look down on yourself. Don't count how many seeds you're sowing. Just be faithful with the seed you are sowing. It's never ever been about quantity, how many seeds you scatter, but about quality. The quality of person you are, noble, and the quality of seed you're planting. And that seed will go and yield a whole other set of seeds. The home, second paragraph. The home in which the members are polite, courteous Christians exerts a far-reaching influence for good. Other families will mark the result attained by such a home and will follow the example set, in their turn guarding the home against satanic influences. Politeness and courtesy, those are lacking in too many homes. I've seen, generally it's the husbands, the fathers, who don't know how to be polite to their own wives. They don't know how to be courteous. Oh, let me help you with that. Let me lift that up for you. It is rare. You go ahead. Oh, you go through the door first. Shall I hold that for you? Let me open it. That is politeness. I don't know if many of us are consciously being polite in our homes. Courtesy. That comes with respect. I don't know how many of us respect each other. And this is not only whether men respect their wives, but I know there are women also who don't respect their husbands, but then will turn around in church and be so polite and courteous to the elder. But what about her own husband? Titus 2 is very clear. Obey your own husband. And Colossians 3 verse 18. Obey and submit to your own husband. It begins at home. God does not give a fig how polite you are to the minister, to the pastor, to the bank teller, if you're not polite to your own husband at home first. Please. This is one of those things some of us might need to really be conscious about as we go through the day. Pray about it. When I was newlywed, I used to set timers every 30 minutes to remind me to pray. And I'd have certain themes that I must pray for. But now I thought that I would be too distracted to pray. That's why I set the timers. But you're never too distracted to pray. It's a conversation with God. God is your friend. And so you're always talking to him anyway. You're constantly communing with him. So commune with him and ask him to help you to be polite to your spouse and to your children. By watchful, careful guarding, self is kept from asserting itself. Correct habits are formed. There is a careful recognition of the rights of others. Again, this is rare, very rare. Sorry for that. From what I've seen, from what I saw when I was younger and up to today, it is extremely rare. It does exist. I've seen it, but it's not the norm. It's not common for people to be recognizing, to be aware of the other's rights. What do they deserve? What do they need? we don't think like that. We always think about me, me, me. We don't ask, how will what I say, or what I'm about to say, how will it impact them? What rights do they have? Freedom of expression. If I'm about to shut them down, and yes, closer, if it's on what does that mean? Am I not demeaning them? I can't even think of the closer word. It's like a put down. But ukupotla is a put down when someone has asked you a genuine question, and then just that is not taking in or thinking of the rights of the person you're responding to, and it's definitely not polite nor courteous. I can think of an example of where this didn't happen, where self did not exert itself, where we all just crumbled or we felt imprisoned by my father. We would go maybe to the shops to get something, and then we'd be thinking, yeah, we're going home. And my dad would just detour because he was driving, and he would suddenly detour and go to the post office at Gatesville without, not just even telling us, without asking. Politeness means you ask. You don't make decisions on behalf of someone else. And it's a nice decision, like, I'm going to give you a gift. That, of course, you don't have to ask. But if it's going to impact me and my time and what I've planned, ask. He would just take me and my mom and my younger sister and just drive off to the post office. Sometimes he would go into the post office, and then we are stuck waiting outside while he does his queuing. No apology, no acknowledgement that we have rights, that we are humans and we deserve dignity and respect. It really, really bugged us a lot. And it is something my dad did quite often. Please may we recognize the rights of others. It eats away at our respect for you. If you don't respect us, how are we going to respect you? If you don't care about us enough to recognize us as human beings in our own right, how in the world will we ever feel like you are protecting us, that we are safe with you? Okay, the next one is 31.3. It is no small matter for a family to stand as representatives of Jesus, keeping God's law in an unbelieving community. It is indeed no small matter. This is a matter that eats at me a lot. I have seen the best Christians go completely haywire, and that is my fear. I've taught my children right. We are still studying right up to now, but what happens when they leave home? What do they do when they're out there? Are they still living what we are teaching and what they claim to live when they're with us? It really bothers me. I want us to represent Christ. I want my children to represent Christ. And until the day I die or they die, I will ever pray that they never do anything that misrepresents Christ or turns others away from Christ. If you're a mother or you're a child, is that your prayer for yourself and for your children? We are required to be living epistles known and read of all men. This position involves fearful responsibilities. We are required to be thus. We have to represent Christ if we call ourselves Christian. Otherwise, just forget about it. Don't call yourself a Christian. Instead of being a fake Christian, just don't be a Christian at all. It takes away, and I've discussed this in the other chapter, so I'm not going to go on about it again. But it detracts from true Christianity when we don't live the gospel we claim to believe in, and it turns other people away from the gospel. It turns other people away from the truth when they think, well, this truth is obviously not good enough if it's not changing you. Why would I be interested in something that can't change you? May we be true and courteous and loving, and bear in mind how fearful a responsibility this is. Think about it. Before you have children, I have a young lady. She's young. Okay, she's young, and she knows all the beliefs, the spirit of prophecy, the Bible. She knows everything I know. She knows that what I'm doing is what should be done, but she lives a totally different life. She's on drugs. She's left the church. She's just living her life, just fully. Makeup, long nails, drugs, alcohol, intercourse, fornication, like sleeping with her boyfriend. You know that. She's just a typical young lady out there. And I mean typical as in typical. There are young girls who actually, even in their 20s and 30s, do want to be and have stayed pure. But the norm is date a boyfriend, you sleep with him, obviously. Everybody drinks. So that's who she is. But because she is so aware of the fearful responsibility, she does not want to be a mother. As she said to me, imagine me being a mother and how I'm going to mess up those children. I know better. There's no way I'll have children until I have come back to God. That is actually quite wise. It's wiser than many of us who are in the church but not churchy. We are in the church but we are of the world and acting like the world. That is wise. Please, if you're not married or if you don't have children yet, look at yourself in the mirror of God's precepts and ask yourself, am I reflecting you, Christ? And if not, let me ask you to work out my salvation with fear and trembling. And then when I have worked it out, then I will be ready to parent a child and lead them to also be like Christ. It is a huge responsibility to make a family. It really is. All right, 32.1. All right, one well-ordered, well-disciplined family tells more in behalf of Christianity than all the sermons that can be preached. And in this last part, the father and mother find helpers in their children who give to others the instruction received in the home. The neighborhood in which they live is helped, for in it they have become enriched for time and for eternity. The whole family is engaged in the service of the Master, and by their godly example, others are inspired to be faithful and true to God in dealing with his flock, his beautiful flock. I am fearful of the path I have set my children on, because they are people. They're not robots. When they change, they will change if they want to change. And why I'm saying this is people in the neighborhood, they love my children. They constantly comment on how well behaved, how polite they are, how wonderful they are, how they're a credit to how I've raised them. This is like the community. And this is on Facebook, our community group. And how lovely they are and how it's a pleasure to see them. It's a lot of positives, and I always get scared. Lord, what will happen the day my children lead others astray? How bad will I feel then? I don't want them to ever be the opposite of what they are now. People at church will attend the Wednesday evening prayer at our local church nearby, and people will say, your children come up with such wise points to mention during the study. They're so well behaved. We can tell they're raised in a holy atmosphere because they're actually studying. They're taking part. Other teenagers take part, but yours do. And this was like even 4 years ago. I'm actually scared when I hear that. I would rather they kind of just stayed in the background. I wish they weren't noticeable, because the brighter your light, the more obvious it will be when it's dimmed or off completely. Then it will really stand out, and then it will be, who? But no, I got Tandy's children. Can you believe what they did? Oh my word. That would be one of the worst things that could happen, to have my children become a byword and to become known for the wrong things. I want them to remain known for the right. It is my greatest prayer and my greatest wish. Above having a job, above having a salary, above having promotions, and I just want them to have a good character and a good reputation. That's what I want for them. Do you want that for your children? As you wake up in the morning, when they come back, if you take them to school, have you prayed for them to be lights at school? That's their community. What are you hoping that they're doing at school? Is it only about learning, or are you hoping that they're imparting light? The 32.3, the last line. Actions speak louder than the most positive profession of godliness. This is how many ministers, elders, preachers, pastors lead the flock astray. This is how people become wolves in sheep's clothing, because actions speak louder than words. But what does the church see? The church sees the words. They don't know that at home there's no courtesy, there's no politeness. They don't know that the wife puts the husband down. They don't know that the wife smacks the husband. We actually heard recordings of a woman beating her husband. And yet she looks so pious at church. God sees us. God sees us. So let's not just use our words to look pious. Let us actually be pious. And let us act it. Eventually we can tell when someone is not actually who they pretend to be, who they claim to be. If we are discerning, if God has given you good discernment, you will be able to tell the actions of a truly converted person and the actions of the one who is claiming to be converted. May our actions show that we are truly converted, and the actions of our children. But yes, the best test of the Christianity of a home is the type of character begotten by its influence. Let us pray that our influence will be perfect, like God is perfect.
I don't really like using my children as examples because children do go astray, but I will mention how this unconscious influence thing is real. I had taken my son with me so that he could carry our non-talking daughter. If she became upset, which she tends to, he would take her out while I continued the doctor's visit. It was for her. And when he walked out, the doctor asked, "Who was that? Was that your son?" So I said, "Yes." And he said, "How are you raising him? He is exactly how we are my wife and I want to raise our sons. We tell them that all we want from them is that they are good and that they are kind and they have a good character. Your son has that." And my son had just sat there and just said, "Okay, let me take her out now." I wish that would remain, and I pray that it remain for the rest of his life. And that is what I hope all Adventist homes, the influence would be like, that our children will carry that out and may it be seen by others out there.
Obviously, we all make mistakes. Sometimes we'll make mistakes purely because we didn't know any better. That's okay. And let's also not hold it against people if they make a mistake. I remember once one of our friends invited us to their place, and there were more of us than she had expected. And so we drove in a convoy to their place in Parklands, and then the husband stops at a shop. This is Sabbath, and he stops at a Pick and Pay supermarket, and we ask, "What are you doing here?" And he says, "No, my wife said I must." Well, he named her name. She said, "I must get juice." I'm like, "It's the Sabbath. Why would you go buying on the Sabbath? We will not die without juice, I promise you." So it stayed in our heads because they were always like, Sabbath is holy, Sabbath is good, don't break the Sabbath, don't work, don't buy. And then they went, and there they are, wanting to buy juice, not bread. There was enough food, but not enough juice. It seemed funny. It was funny and unusual. But also, it didn't mean we thought less of them and their Christianity. Let us view it it's a lapse. Until we see a pattern, may we be kind enough to pray that someone has just lapsed and speak up like we did. So we told him, "No, just get into the car and let's go to your house." So his wife did ask, "Where's the juice?" And he's like, "Hey, they said I mustn't get any." And that was it. So that's the other thing. If you see a family going astray from what they have taught, if you see a family going astray from what they have believed or said they believed, do speak up in a good way, but do speak up. That's your influence as well. Influence is not only about actions, it's just that actions speak louder than the words. But do speak those words to stop him breaking the Sabbath. Where are we? 32.5. The work to which we are called does not require wealth or social position or great ability. It requires a kindly, self-sacrificing spirit and a steadfast purpose. Kindly, self-sacrificing spirit and a steadfast purpose. This again is so hard to maintain. This is where I saw a lot of people breaking down. The self-sacrificing spirit in our homes is sorely lacking, really lacking. We will even sacrifice our own desires for the sake of the other. It's very rare. Mothers generally, not all, unfortunately, but mothers generally already have it it's in them that, okay, I will take care of the child day and night, even when the husband is there, that kind of thing. It's kind of there. That is actually self-sacrifice, because you're giving of your time, you're giving of your energy. That is self-sacrifice. But let's do it in every sphere or every aspect of our family lives, please. Kindly self-sacrificing. Would your spouse describe you as that? And if not, why not? A lamp, however small, if kept steadily burning, may be the means of lighting many other lamps. Our sphere of influence may seem narrow, our abilities small, our opportunities few, our requirements limited, yet wonderful possibilities are ours through a faithful use of the opportunities of our own homes. All right, we can be a light, and we will light other lamps. Don't look down on how narrow your work is or how few people you are teaching. That's not how God sees it. God just sees a wonderful opportunity in what you are doing. Do it faithfully. It doesn't even take much. You don't need wealth. You don't need social position or great ability. You just need to be kindly and self-sacrificing and steadfast. I wanted to note that. Steadfast, that means every single day. Like Paul, you die daily. You every single day, purpose. I will be. I will be. God help me to be. God help me to be. I surrender. I surrender every single day. Steadfast. You can't rely on how you were last month and say, well, I was steadfast then. I was kindly then. So I'll just give it a miss today and yesterday and tomorrow. No. Let us be steadfast. Constantly working on be the light that God wants us to be. 33.3. The influence of an ill-regulated family is widespread and disastrous to all society. It accumulates in a tide of evil that affects families, communities, and governments. There are many ways this can happen. There is an adoptee I know whose father, biological father, is a bank robber, is a robber, mugger, assaulter, has been to prison many times. His brothers were the same thing. None of them finished school. He didn't finish even primary school. He learned from his siblings to go and rob people, sometimes armed robbery. That's what they learned in that family, and that obviously has had a terrible impact on society. This is here in Cape Town, in one of our townships, and in many townships because they live in different places now as adults. Crime obviously has a disastrous impact on society, a physical impact. But there's also the emotional disaster. I know a family where both parents were adulterers and adulteresses. They were both not faithful. They both couldn't remain true to one person. And I don't know if any of their children have been able to. That impact also, because you see, the thing is, if I cheat, like, let's pretend I cheat on my husband. Sorry. Let's pretend I cheat on my husband, right? And I get my guy. My guy then starts to associate me with Seventh-day Adventist. In fact, there was a person who, when my husband joined, it's one of his jobs. She said, "You're what? You're Seventh-day Adventist? I will never, ever, ever have anything to do with Seventh-day Adventist because I was dating this guy," she named him, "and he cheated on me. And he was Seventh-day Adventist." That has a huge moral impact on society. She kept that. It broke her. Being unfaithful, whether married or not, it breaks the person in a way that cannot really ever go back to normal. It can't. And he broke her heart big time. She remains and carries those scars and those memories forever. And then she tells it to other people. He cheated on me. Even her friends will know he cheated on her. How could he? We don't like him. I bet you they say we hate him now. And it just has an impact that spreads. Now imagine if my guy was married. And then the married man finds out. Not only have I taught my guy that Seventh-day Adventists are immoral, now his wife knows too that Seventh-day Adventists are immoral and don't keep the law they purport to keep. I've seen that also in real life. And it got to the point where my guy's wife, okay, it's not really me, I'm not a cheat, but it got to the point where my guy's wife phoned me. See, it doesn't work, but I don't want to use hypothetical. Okay, let's pretend I've got a friend, Sandy. Sandy is married, right? And Sandy's husband cheats with a married woman. And then the married woman now knows that Sandy's husband doesn't really believe in Adventism. Sandy's husband's lover, the husband discovers that my wife has been cheating with the Seventh-day Adventist. What happened is that this angry man then phoned the cheating Adventist and even told him, "You are a hypocrite. You go and you stand up front, I'm an Adventist, and yet you're a cheat? Really? You go around breaking people's families?" Imagine. You people don't understand why not you people, but there are too many people who act like adultery is nothing. For me, I truly understand why God said the adulterers should be stoned to death, because it really impacts not only the broken hearts of the people who have been betrayed, but it makes the Bible look fallible, weak. It makes the God of the Bible look powerless, as if he cannot keep us from falling. And that is a lie. We just forget to stay away from the devil, and we forget to hold on, and we don't have our steadfast purpose. So I'm sorry for that rant, but I've seen actually I will it's not a rant. I've seen too many females especially broken in the church by men who have been unfaithful. Way too many. And one whose wife was, but it's mostly the women who are broken by this. And I hate it with all my heart. The damage infidelity does cannot ever be erased. It cannot ever be forgotten. And the pain it inflicts is there forever. We may see her smiling at church, but she's broken and she's depressed and sad. And if he has repeated, then it's game over. She'll never be able to trust ever again. Or unless he really wins her trust for the next 40 years and really works at winning her trust. But this has been a scourge that I've been aware of for too many years. Way too many years. One of my people, a relative, even tried to commit suicide over a man who did that to her. Another one, she caught AIDS from a husband who did that to her. I will not stop talking very loudly about how dangerous infidelity is. This time, specifically for this chapter, how it is a terrible influence on the outside. So yes, we will have our criminals, the drug-dealing families. We have the sexual abuse that unfortunately does tend to then get passed on. But by others, the abused becomes the abuser, unfortunately. Not always, thank God, not always. But also infidelity has a wide-ranging, far-reaching impact. And it brings darkness on the world. If you are ever tempted, think about that. You are bringing darkness onto the world. If you are doing it, stop. Stop right now. It's not worth losing your salvation for, extra validation. Don't do it. The last paragraph. It is impossible for any of us to live in such a way that we shall not cast an influence in the world. No member of the family can enclose himself within himself, where other members of the family shall not feel his influence and spirit. This is another big one. People tend to be at home dragons, but at church they act like sheep. And so nobody actually knows what the family is going through at home. I used to hear so many preachers saying, yeah, many of you, the wives are here smiling and saying amen, but at home they're crying, and inside they're crying right now. And I never understood that because I was a child. I thought being grown up was really fun. It's not. Too many of us hurt the other. And we, unfortunately, we do cast an influence, not only in the world, but our influence and spirit has a blighting or brightening influence on those closest to us, the most vulnerable, because they're stuck with us. Those who live with us are stuck with us. If I'm a nagging, haranguing wife, my husband has to come home to that every single day. At church, it's just once a week and they're free. The very expression of the countenance has an influence for good or evil. His spirit, his words, his actions, his attitude towards others are unmistakable. If he is living in selfishness, he surrounds his soul with a malarious atmosphere. While if he is filled with the love of Christ, he will manifest courtesy, kindness, tender regard for the feelings of others, and will communicate to his associates by his acts of love a tender, grateful, happy feeling. I've seen lots of mismatched couples where one is constantly being the tender person, trying to be happy all the time, grateful, but the other one has a malarious, or brings out, or his soul is surrounded by a malarious atmosphere, living in selfishness, where I and only I matter. The words, our actions, again, the same thing as I said in the beginning. Xa uphoxa umyeni wakho or umfazi wakho, you are hurting them, you are piercing them. When you put them down, you're saying you're nothing, you're stupid, you're ignorant, you're dumb. It hurts. The attitude. And as we keep saying, they would never speak that way to the president. They would never speak that way to their own mother. They would never speak that way to their father. They would never speak that way to their boss. So why do we bring it to our own homes? To the ones we promised to protect and defend and love. Please, I beg of you, the women who are violent, beating their husbands, mocking them, please stop. Rather just go, just leave them in peace. You go and find your peace, because obviously if you can't be kind to your husband, you're unhappy, aren't you? So then go and be unhappy on your own and stop abusing your husband. More importantly, God actually does have the power to keep us from falling. We need to surrender to him. May every Christian be a true Christian, a true-hearted Christian as well. May what people see in our happy photos be the reality of our lives. May we not be giving a fake, may we not be looking, there's a book I read, but we take good pictures. It's about a woman who left her adulterous and very narcissistic husband. And everyone thought they were picture perfect. In the pictures, she looked happy, he looked happy, they looked like a perfect family. But at home, she was suffering his snide put-downs, he was just cold and uncaring. And eventually also moved on to physically abusive as well. I pray that we will be light. May we brighten our families. May we bring peace and hope to our families. May our spouses look forward to seeing us. That is my hope for all of us. May our children be happy when they know we are about to enter the house. That is my prayer for all of us. And if you're not married, I hope that you are aiming to be the kind of person who everybody looks forward to and is happy about. Open that door and enter the house.